Hi, I'm going to talk about blooming and polishing in this video. So there is something with painting with hot wax, with beeswax, that is called blooming, particularly with the Hiro Yokose paintings. If you look at the blogs that I have got linked up in that particular section of the course, you will see that there's a section there where the client that I worked with asked me to go back and resolve some really heavy blooming that occurred with those paintings. Now, I haven't got great examples here because the wax that I work with doesn't tend to bloom anywhere near as much as in the examples on that blog. I use what I've discovered is that pure natural beeswax on its own tends to bloom more than the wax that I use. I use the Encaustic medium, which has a Damar resin added to it. And whilst it blooms and needs polishing once it's first applied, and maybe once or twice after that, once you've done it a couple of times, it doesn't tend to come back. Whereas I've found with the beeswax, it has more of a tendency, the plain beeswax on its own, it has more of a tendency to bloom than the Encaustic medium that I use. But if you refer back to the Hiro Yokose blogs, you will see, and there's actually a photograph of this particular wax block on there. This is one that somebody made for me, and if you look at the photograph, you will see that had gone completely like it had a dusty white substance all over it. And it's to do with the chemical breakdown. Whilst the wax is heated, I'm not going to go into the chemical chain reaction that happens here, but what happens is it gets a bit of a dusty white surface on it. But once you've removed that once or twice, it doesn't tend to come back as much as previously. So if you find that you have got a painting and you've got very serious blooming with it, then this is how to resolve that. You can just polish it lightly. It's the same principle as when you first apply wax. When you put it on, if you've watched the fusing video, you will see that as the wax is hot and molten, it's very, very shiny and you get that really high gloss. As it cools and solidifies, it goes back to a very matte finish. But what you can do is you can actually buff the wax and it will come back to a really high shine. So I'm going to show you how to do that. So whether you're literally just apply it, and depending on the size of the repair that you're working on, you know, you may or may not need to do this when you first do your repair. But so I've got this is just a test piece that has gone quite dull, that I've managed to sort out. And you can see here, this is basically when it's been polished and buffed. So I'm going to show you how to do that now. You don't need any massive tools. I mean, it can be as simple as the back of your hand. Sometimes if I'm doing you can use an old t-shirt. Can do it with a glove if you want. If you're really particularly with very valuable paintings that you're repairing, that might be a way to do it. But I use this section of my hand. Make sure you don't have any rings or bracelets or watches or anything that is going to catch the painting. So make sure the painting is completely cooled. You don't want it warm at all at this point. It's got to be as cool as it will go. Just hold it gently, and the key here is to go really, really gently. If you look at that Hiro Yokose blog, you will see the client had actually asked me to show her staff how to keep it clean. One of the ladies got on really, really well with it. She was quite happy doing this. One of the guys, really not interested at all. He just did not have the patience for it. And what happens if you go in too fast, and if you go in and do this and really rub it, it's highly likely that you'll go in too hard and you'll damage the surface of the painting. So it is the lightest of touch, and you're just really, really gently kind of going over. Now what you should see here, can you see? There we go. So that has now gone from that quite dull matte colour, or finish, to this really high shine effect. So that's, I mean, some people like the matte effect, and that is the design. But if you want to know how to, particularly when you've kind of heated the wax and it goes back to that very dull thing, this is the process you're going to do to get that high shine back. Obviously this has got some colour in it. If you've got the plain beeswax, then that's how those Hiro Yokose paintings got that really nice high shine. So you can do it with that. You could use an old t-shirt. Some people use, well, just a piece of cloth, but just be mindful that you've got a very fine, soft cloth. And as I say, go really, really, really lightly. If you find that you're getting, as you're doing this with your cloth, sometimes, if you can see, this cloth isn't too bad actually, but sometimes you'll see that you can actually, you'll see the line of the cloth being left in the surface of the wax, but that's fine. You can kind of get the main, you know, say you had a cloth, you go over it very gently like this, but you can just see those lines on. Just finish off with the, just really, really lightly. Make sure you don't have any hand cream or anything like that. No, you know, nothing on your hands. But I find just literally just, and it's almost like a hovercraft going over the top. You're just very, very lightly shining it off. And if you get any of those little lines, it's almost like a you know, sandpaper when you go a, you know, harder grain, you know, a higher grain and then down to a finer grain. It's almost like that. So, you know, don't panic if you get those. And it, you know, I actually use that as part of the process anyway. But it's slow, it's gentle, painstaking, quite zen-like, but other people might find it really frustrating. But that is how you're going to get that very high shine, that beautiful lustrous finish. So whether you've just applied the wax hot or whether you get that bloom, which might come up, it could be a month, it could be a year, it could be 2 years later. And as I say, do refer to that third Hiro Yokose blog, because there's some really good examples there of how the blooming looks at its worst on those paintings. So that should resolve that for you.